Hi friends, welcome back to 3 Barrow Farm. Today we're going to make a weed tea to fertilise our plants, and we're also going to do a mid-winter harvest and see what we can find in my veggie garden. Compost can take a while to make, so while we're waiting for my compost to be ready, we can actually make a weed tea in a quicker time and get similar nutrients from this weed tea that we would our compost. By watering our plants with this fertiliser that we've made from weeds, we can be adding phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, magnesium, boron, sulfur, copper, and other minerals and nutrients that these weeds have stored in their leaves and their roots. It's very easy to make. All you need is a bucket, some water, and some weeds. You can even use the leaves from your vegetable plants to make this weed tea. However, I wouldn't recommend using the ones that have yellowed off. These ones have already started to lose their nutrients. This leaf here would hardly have anything, just fibre left really in this yellow one here. So I recommend that you use your greener leaves, the ones that are looking really nice, even the ones that might have a few holes in them. They've still got some nutrients in here. But the one wonderful thing about using weeds in our weed tea is that these weeds have really deep roots. They get down really far into our soils and they are mining all the nutrients up into the plant. So by using the weeds that have a deeper root, such as dandelions, these weeds are going to be mining the nutrients from deep in the soil. So we're going to have a more nutrient-dense weed tea if we use our deep-rooted weeds. So I have a bucket of water here. This has filled up from natural rainfall that we have had for a few weeks now. It has just been raining so much. We've had well and truly over 100 millimetres of rain in the past couple of weeks, and everything is quite wet out here. So I'm going to use this bucket. It's a bit over half full of water, and I'm going to be adding my weeds into this. Normally, I would go weeding around my garden and then I would fill the bucket up with water, but I thought better to use the water that has naturally dropped from the sky, so we're using this bucket today. Now, depending on how much weed tea you want to make depends on how big a bucket you use, but I like to use as big a bucket I can find that's readily available. You can even throw some grass into it. I've got some clover here as well, so I'm going to add that in. And then I've got this dandelion here. Now, while these dandelion leaves are looking a bit brown, the best thing I could use here on this plant is actually the root. And there are some flowers coming up as well, so I might throw those in. Now, I usually manage to get the root up just fine, but because I've just had surgery, I'm not going to go and dig this root up. So this is just an example. I would dig this up and I would put the roots into this bucket as well. Now, dandelions are fantastic because their roots go really, really deep, whereas these plants here, which are similar to dandelions, they look a bit like them, but their roots don't go as deep. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting a bit of soil into the weed tea. As you can see here, these weeds have some pretty good root systems on them. And of course, I'm wanting to take up weeds that are in the way. So I'm doing two jobs at once here. I'm making a weed tea and I'm also weeding a section that I want to plant in next. Oh, that water is cold. Now, not only are weeds fantastic to put into your weed tea, but comfrey leaves are a great contribution. In fact, you could just make a weed tea out of comfrey. Comfrey is going to give lots of nutrients to your plants. So I recommend having a few around. This is quite unheard of for me to have comfrey growing this lovely and to have some new leaves coming out of this plant while we're in the middle of winter. Usually it goes dormant and I don't have this many leaves to pick from. There's a few weeds here too that I'll pick up and chuck into the weed tea as well. And I found some yarrow to put in too. Yarrow is fantastic for putting in your weed teas. Now, I could add some more water on top of this. What I want is the leaves to be submerged in the water. It's okay if they're sticking out a little bit, but obviously I want all of the nutrients from the leaves to be infused into this water. So I will add a little bit more water in here, and then you can put a lid on. I tend to not put a lid on at this time of the year because the evaporation rate is much less, but in summertime you'll need to put a lid on because the evaporation rate will be higher and you'll start to lose the water out of the bucket. Oh, there's a couple of dandelion flowers. Look at that. We're starting to get dandelion flowers already. So I'm going to put them into there as well. And I will let this sit for about a month. I have one that I made before my surgery. Okay, so this is the one I've just made up right now. And as you can see, this one here, that has been sitting for between 5 to 6 weeks now, and it smells. So it's basically when it starts to smell and it goes that darker color, you know that it's ready to strain off and start feeding to your plants. Now, after straining this, you're going to want to do a ratio of about 1 to 10, or sometimes people do a 2 to 10, depending on how potent the weed tea is that you have made. So say for every litre of this weed tea, I will put 10 litres of fresh water with it, so it's not too strong. Now, I have kept this open and it has rained, so this bucket has filled all the way up, and some of the plants have surfaced to the top of the bucket, but as you can see, they have rotted away nicely in this water. I've got these dandelion roots and leaves here sitting at the top, but underneath down below there'll be a sludge of other weeds that I've popped into this bucket. Ooh. Oh, it stinks. So the garden sieve that we normally have, that I normally use for this, it had broken. So my husband had pulled it apart and recycled the metal parts, and we used the wooden parts in our fire. So I had to use this, which I don't normally use, and some of the bits and bobs have gotten into this bucket, but that's okay. We haven't decanted all of it just because I usually allow it to drip through, and because this sieve isn't big enough to take up the whole space of the mouth of this bucket, I'm going to wait till we buy a new garden sieve to decant the rest of that into here. Stop licking it. Gross. No. Dogs always like stinky stuff, don't they? If you do have dogs, make sure you put the sludge in your compost and you don't put it on the ground, because if they're like my dogs, they'll roll in it. Gross. Okay, so I've got this 9-litre watering can and I've filled it up to just over the 8-litre mark, and I'm going to put in probably around half a litre of this mixture. Okay, so there we have our diluted fertilizer. So now I can spread this on my garden. So I'm not going to water the things that I will be harvesting, but instead the things that I will not be harvesting from, that I want to grow up nice and healthy and strong. So I've got my leeks over here. I've got these Egyptian walking onions. I'll give them a water with it. And I've got my coriander down here and lettuce. And we can water the dandelion roots. I'll water my sweet peas down this row here. And then I will just refill this with water and with my weed tea and continue watering until I've watered everything that I want to give some extra nutrients to. You could also put this in a spray pack and spray it on really finely. This is probably the best way to do this. I can't do that at the moment. I can't have the pack on my back. It's just too heavy and I don't want anything going near where I've had my surgery. So I'm just going to be using this watering can, and I'm also just going to leave what I have decanted and use it over a period of time. So every week when there's going to be a few dry days, I will water the plants with this mixture. Now I want to be careful with certain things like the garlics. I don't want to be watering them too much because we are already getting enough rain. I don't want to cause rot or rust in those plants. So we have to be careful how much water we are putting on them. But it's as simple as that. Just a bucket, water and some weeds. Just wait a month and then you have this wonderful fertilizer for your garden. Okay, it probably doesn't look like much is growing in my garden, but we're going to go for a walk around both vegetable plots and see what we can harvest today. And we won't be harvesting everything that we find today, but we will be having a look because from appearances out here, it doesn't look like there's much growing, but there is quite a bit of food out there. All right, I've got my baskets and I'm going to try not to stand on other vegetables in this patch here. These broad beans that came up all by themselves are falling over. I need to tie them up. So here we have some turnips. So I will put on the screen when I sowed or planted these vegetables into my garden. These turnips, they are looking really nice. We've already harvested a few of them and put them into soups. So there's 2 so far. I only want to harvest what I'm going to be using over the next few days. Trying to take them out without taking everything out with them. So I just sort of twist them a little bit to take them out. Wow, look at that one. A gorgeous, perfect turnip. Look at that one. And you can tell I haven't been out here attending to my vegetables because I would normally take all the old leaves off around the base of the greenery that's coming up. All right, we have 4 turnips to put into one of our baskets. Okay, there are some leeks growing here which came up all by themselves from a leek that I let go to seed in this section of the garden. And there's one here that is ready to harvest. Oh, I just dug into it. Damn. But I can still use it. It's a small one and yeah, I have cut into the bottom of it there, but it'll do. I use the entire leek, so I will use all these greens as well. I just won't use the tops of them where it's gone yellow. Maybe we take out this one too. I'll try not to chop it. All right, there's one more. There we go. 2 little leeks there. I've just spotted a beetroot. Now this beetroot looks like it's a little bit old. You can sort of tell that because it's starting to put up more leaves all over the top of it. But we'll take this inside and we'll see how good it is to use in our soup. All right, I've got loads and loads of kale in my garden. Pretty much everywhere you look, you can find some kale growing. These plants here are looking extremely healthy, particularly at the tops. Of course, I haven't been out here to take a lot of the undergrowth, so I do have some yellowing leaves occurring on these plants, but I need to make some more of my green smoothies, so I will take a whole bunch of this in and we'll probably make a frittata as well with this kale. There's so much of it. I could also start making another green powder, but we have been struggling with our solar system of late, so I won't be doing that just yet. And we've got a piece that's probably snapped off during one of our storms that we had come through when we had a lot of that rain coming down. There we go. Listen to that. Nice and fresh, beautiful kale. All right, here we have a bit of a mess of an area where we've got some cabbages growing. And as you can see, this soil here is quite depleted and there are a lot of caterpillars. I haven't had this many caterpillars in a part of my garden for a very long time. And for me, I see this as a nutrient deficiency in my garden. But if we take off all of the outer leaves of this cabbage, we've got a beautiful cabbage underneath. Now, I know that this cabbage is not the best cabbage because the caterpillars are going after it. So this soil needs some more calcium. And because the caterpillars are attacking this, I know that this cabbage here doesn't have as much calcium in it as it could. So further down in this vegetable patch, there are some cabbages that are doing much better. But yeah, I know that I can do better with this. I know that this area of my garden needs some more work. I need to make some more sauerkraut. So I'm going to harvest another couple of cabbages and I'll make some sauerkraut with them. So as we go further down this patch, the cabbages look a bit better. So the insects will attack the outer leaves because the outer leaves have less nutrients in them. There's a couple of slugs on here. That one's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with this one. And then we come down here and these ones look much, much better. I can't see any poo on them. They've got a few holes on them, but these ones are doing well. So I do know that this area here has more calcium in it than the area that I harvested previously. So let's harvest one more. So I'm going to come back later and pick up all these leaves and take them out to my chickens. All right, there we go. There's our third cabbage. Now here's my thyme. It's doing actually quite amazingly over this winter, which is quite uncommon for us here in central Victoria. It usually dies off quite a lot. It's not at its amazing state that it does get into in spring, but the colour looks amazing and I should really have my cutters to do this. I'm giving it a bit of an awful haircut. There we go. The parsley's doing magnificently. Look at the thickness of that branch there. Some of it's actually rotted through, like the stems are rotting, and that's probably because of all the rain that we've had. I could almost just come along and chop this right back, take out all of this, use some of it, compost most of it, and then let this grow up here. All right, so there's some parsley, but a lot of this isn't looking its best. I've got a few more parsley plants that I can harvest from, but this will see me through for the moment. I've also got an amazing amount of coriander, which in this area, I've got a lot of damage. Like I've got a lot of rust happening on my calendulas. And this area is very densely packed, so that's probably why, plus all of the rain that we've had. So I'm just coming out here and harvesting coriander as much as I can because this is the best time to be harvesting it before it gets warmer and this tries to set seed. So there's a nice bunch of coriander to put in my baskets. These are looking just lovely, filled with so much goodness. All right, now for the exciting part. Okay, right here I have two beautiful cauliflowers, and these cauliflowers have been so healthy. We've harvested 4 already, and we haven't had any pest problems in this bed like we have had in the other row of this garden area. You can see the whiteness from under the leaves, whereas this is starting to yellow off a bit. The other one looks much better. Let's harvest that one. These leaves are so strong. Oh, this is definitely a workout for me after not being in my garden for so long. See, look at that one. That is just gorgeous and perfect. So this tells me that this one here didn't fully open and the leaves were over it when that rain fell, because there's no rain damage on the top of this one. So you want to harvest your open cauliflowers if it's going to rain, or if it's going to rain and they're not quite ready, just tie the leaves together over the florets and it will keep it nice and free from rain damage. All right, there they go in one of the baskets. Almost too big for this basket, really. Wow. Okay, and here we have the Brussels sprouts, which is really exciting. I love my Brussels sprouts. These aren't as big as I was hoping, and some of them are starting to go to seed, so they're starting to open up. Last year's were so much bigger. There are more to come on this plant here, so I will let them get bigger, but I'm really happy with what I've harvested today. Now over here you can see that a lot of my broccoli is going to flower, but there are still some sprouts on these plants that we can harvest. And I mean, you can harvest the flowers as well. You can definitely eat these, put them in a salad or cook them up just as you would your normal broccoli. You'll just want to cook the flowers for much less time than you would for these florets. And I just found some more evidence of rain damage. So you can see in the middle here where it's browning off, that is going bad after all that rain. So the little florets on the outside will be okay, but most of this I will be giving to the chickens. You could eat the stems though. You could just cut off that part and eat the stem, which I might do. There we go. There's one full basket of homegrown goodies. Okay, lastly, I have harvested some lettuce, which we will eat for lunch very soon because it's pretty much almost lunchtime now. Well, friends, thanks for hanging out with me and harvesting all these goodies and making the weed tea. If you've made a fertilizer from your weeds before, let me know in the comments below. I'm absolutely exhausted. This is my first video back filming a complete video from start to finish since my surgery. Tomorrow will be 5 weeks since my surgery. So I'm feeling good, but I'm also absolutely exhausted after this effort. So I'm going to go and make myself some lunch and have a sit down and just soak in this glorious sunshine we're having. Thank you all so much for hanging in there with me during this period of time. I hope you have enjoyed the pre-recorded videos that I have been releasing over the last 4 weeks. I have some exciting ones planned for the future, so watch out for those. Every Sunday I release a video. If you haven't seen all the videos that I released while I've been healing, then I recommend you go back and have a look at some of those. So we won't be needing to go and buy any vegetables for our meals this week. I hope you're getting some harvests out of your garden. See you soon, friends. This smells very strong. Don't lick that. It's gross. Why do dogs always like stinky, smelly things? This smells a lot.